Now, this kind of broke just as we were finishing up the show yesterday. Nuno Espírito Santo sacked as manager at Nottingham Forest. This is a man who exceeded, of course, all expectations last season. Forest very much in the Champions League hunt, of course, in the end, having to make do for a place in Europe. But in the end, it clearly was a big falling out between him and the backroom staff, in particular Edu, according to reports that were published in August the 25th. Of course, he came out in that press conference and said things are not good, and you felt from that moment on that his time at Nottingham Forest was on the wane. And in the end, he was fired yesterday. And it's interesting who was coming in to take over. Ange Postecoglou, of course, after being sacked from Spurs in the summer, reported to be the new Nottingham Forest manager. Craig, where do you want to start with this?
Well, it's a complete sea change in terms of what you're going to get in style. Nottingham Forest under Steve Cooper were a team that tried to be hard to beat. Nuno Espírito Santo continued that, but had a little bit more flair about it. But they still had the hard-to-beat mantra. Their defensive record was excellent. They generally let teams outpossess them. They had some wide guys at the time in Elanga and Hudson-Odoi, and obviously Chris Wood up front having the season and a half of his life. That's all gone out, and that was good enough to get them almost into the Champions League at one point. Mm-hmm. Now, the big question was, could you keep that going, and would that sort of falter at some point? We don't know. But what we do know, and Stevie and I were talking about this during all the games today, is that that's just not absolutely a complete turnaround into how this new manager has worked all his life. And the most recent evidence of Tottenham. But before that, Celtic and in Japan and in Australia. It's hell for leather, it's open, it's attacking. And the big question will be, well, A, we know he's going to do it and try it. But the big question is, has he got, well, I think I know the answer, but has he got the players to even attempt it?
And what is the answer?
I think no.
Right.
Nuno, the former coach, had a bunch of players, a bit like Oliver Glasner, we talked about Glasner yesterday at Palace, understands what he has and what he can get out of them. You know, there's no point in me trying to get those three centre-halves at Crystal Palace passing the ball all the time, because they don't want it. And we've got a big 6'4" striker up front, and Mateta, so we play a bit longer. And Forest were built on a solid back four, a bit of pace on the counter-attack, and a big striker who is in the form of his life. You're taking that whole sea change and saying, right, I want the centre-half to split and get the ball, and I want the full-backs. The Forest full-backs have never been anywhere else but left-back and right-back in the last 2 years. Never. Up the park back, tucking in. So how is it all going to work? It might be exciting to start with, but I could see so many problems ahead if he tries to do that.
It's a complete gamble.
I want to take it back to, obviously this is a slightly different conversation, different level, but the reason Arne Slot did so well at Liverpool is that he didn't tinker too much. Yeah? Right. I think that's what we talked about. He didn't let his ego kind of get in the way. So if you're Ange Postecoglou, surely you look back at what worked last season.
Yeah, but hold on. But Arne Slot already took over a pretty attacking Liverpool side.
No, I'm not talking about attack. I'm just talking about style in general.
Just in general.
What worked for Liverpool worked well, and he just tweaked a little bit. What we're talking about is Ange coming in and completely upsetting the apple cart because he only knows how to play once.
Yeah, but not a chance.
Can he put that ego aside and say, actually, what they did last season worked. Why would I change it all?
No, because it's a bit... You know, Frank was talking about Deschamps earlier. That's how Deschamps does it.
Right.
This is how Ange does it. And he's not going to change that. I mean, Marinakis has just been waiting to find somebody. And he clearly hasn't thought about this. Because everything Craig's talking about them having a good shape and being tight is because nobody in that Forest side ever got exposed. Ever. Because they were always a unit. Now, under Ange, every single one of them is going to be exposed. Now it's, OK, let's see what you can do. And they don't have a Van de Ven at the back who can do the 100 metres in 9 seconds, who's going to clear up all the holes and all the gaps. You know, Milinkovic and Muriello were arguably one of the best defensive partnerships in the Premier League last year. But we saw Milinkovic today against England getting exposed and didn't have any pace to get to... He ended up getting sent off. So, I mean, Marinakis absolutely has just gambled big time. And I'm like, Craig, I don't see how it works.
I'll give him a little bit of swallowing his pride. Postecoglou was at the end of the season to win the Europa League. He swallowed it a little bit because they were defensive against Eintracht Frankfurt and Man United got the better of them in terms of possession. Tottenham did not play well. And so he did revert a little bit to being a little bit, bit more boring. But I think that was because they'd lost a bit of form and confidence. But he's no way he's turning into... he's going to Nottingham Forest for 2 or 3 years, if that's his contract, and sitting there watching them defend all the time. He just hasn't got it in him.
But it's strange because normally when a manager takes over, a team is really struggling, but they're not. Obviously they've got 4 points so far this season, but given what they did last season, there was money in the bank for Nuno. What are the fans saying? You've got family of Nottingham Forest fans.
I'm not him.
Do you speak to them at all?
No. Hold on. It's only just happened today.
I know, but you may have rung your boy and said, "What do you reckon?"
No,
he's not talking.
He rang me for money. To go, he never even mentioned Forest. He said, "Dad, have you got 500 quid? I'm trying to book a holiday."
Nice. Where's he going?
I don't know. Somewhere cheap.
Well, not that cheap. Frank, what do you make of this all?
I'm concerned too, like the Scottish couple. I really think that it can be an issue because, as enthusiastic that I was, and I think everybody were, when Ange signed for Spurs and changed dramatically the way of playing for 6 months, he never had an option to, and a good coach. His strength is to allow himself to change the way of thinking according to the player that he has in charge. And that's going to be completely different with Nottingham Forest, as and Craig and Stevie mentioned and alluded. It's more defensive side, and you cannot change those players who are known as very good defensively. And I don't see he's going to change his way of thinking. His strength is to how to encourage the players to go forward, where with those type of players and the squad that he has in charge and in position, he will have to work more defensively. I'm not sure he's capable of doing that. It's why I'm concerned. Let's see. It's going to be very interesting because that's the only chance for him and the last chance to show to the world that he's a very, very good coach.
So what do you do? Like, you've got one or 2 days with the players in theory after international break, and you've got Arsenal. Do you delay this announcement and have an interim take over the Arsenal game to give yourself a little bit of a buffer?
No,
yeah, they haven't announced it yet.
It's not official.
With this owner, I have no idea what they do. But I wouldn't want to worry Forest fans, but what I would say...
It's always a bot.
Well, what made them solid and as good as they were with the defence, right? We shouldn't forget, although Tottenham won the Europa League last year, this openness that just obliterated the middle of the park in their defence during... And yeah, he had a lot of injuries. I get that. But they finished just above the relegation zone.
They lost 22 games last season.
They finished just above the relegation zone. It's the one thing that Nottingham Forest fans are going to be quivering about. Because they've just spent 20 years. A team that won the European Cup, the English title under Brian Clough, they spent 20 years in the Championship. They couldn't get out. And now they've been out for how many years it is. This change of style is so concerning, I think, where the Forest fans will be like, this football's great. Yeah. And then bang, 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 you're losing games, like Tottenham, where you can't get out of the rut because you can't really change the style. I think it's a worry.
Again, if you're a Forest fan and you think about it rationally, at least when he went to Spurs, he had a pre-season and he had a lot of time to spend with his players, and they started off on fire for 6 months, as Frank said. And then, because of the way they play, you can't sustain it.
If he thinks there's some sort of connection between his Greek heritage and the ownership, Marinakis, obviously Greek shipping magnate, if he thinks that will save him, it won't, because the owner is nuts. And if his results are not there, he'll be fired. So it's a big call, actually, for both Forest and for Postecoglou to go in there at a club that have done things and had success doing it completely the opposite way into how this potential new manager works.